Hello, hello, and good morning there. We're just going to give it a couple of seconds so folks can log in. Well, I would say welcome to a great day, but it's still a fabulous day over here in Los Angeles. Wondering if you folks are joining us from somewhere else in the country. Welcome, welcome. My name is Sadie Uribe, and I'm the media producer for the Los Angeles Regional SBDC. The SBDC is a national program with over 1,000 locations across the country, helping to stimulate economic growth through business advising and development. The LASBDC offers no-cost services through funding provided by the U.S. Small Business Administration, SBA, and from the California Office of the Small Business Advocate. It's your tax dollars at work. The Los Angeles Regional SBDC network operates 7 service locations throughout Los Angeles, Santa Barbara, and Ventura counties. Our services are also offered virtually. We are here to help. We empower small business owners by offering tailored solutions through personalized one-on-one business advising, cutting-edge workshops, and comprehensive programs, all provided at no cost. We are dedicating to supporting your entrepreneurial journey every step of the way. So, Lori, I'm kind of excited because we're going to talk about one of my favorite things today. Oh my
Well, we're
God.
gonna wait and see what that is. So, yes, I am too. And Sadie, can you believe it's almost June?
I mean, looking out the window, I believe it because it's June gloom right now. But you know
Yeah.
what? It is officially summertime. Yay!
It is, and I can tell it's summer because what happens when it's summer, we have more people on vacation. I see the numbers go down, and then you come back by the fall, which is awesome, which is awesome. Okay, we have a great show today. So glad to be here. So let's go ahead and get started. As always, I use this as a platform to announce my upcoming webinars, and Sadie puts all the links in the chat. As you know, here's my June lineup. I am bringing back, should you be charging your customers sales tax, what you need to know. Special shout out, especially to those that are using an online platform like Shopify, specifically Shopify. Many people think that Shopify is collecting the sales tax for them. They don't quite understand how this works, and they do not understand what is called economic nexus, which is a requirement when you are selling into other states, which online just happens to do so. So do join me for that webinar. I find a lot of people are doing things a little on the illegal side, which would be considered fraud, because they're not dealing with the sales tax properly. So jump in on that one. I don't offer it all the time, but I had a couple more people and I was like, oh, no, 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 this is not good. And so I thought I'd better come back with that announcement. Okay, upcoming shows. We got Johnny today. I didn't change that. But starting in June, we got Anne coming on, and Anne has a online, speaking of online clothing, 124 Voltaire. And what's going to be interesting about that conversation is really a lot of people struggle to sell online. Anne's got a long time history of selling online, dealing with all types of things in procurement. So great opportunity to ask some of the questions and find out information that I know many in the audience are always struggling with. And then we have on June 11th, Rachel's coming on from Refined Media Group. I'm wanting to have a couple more marketing people come on, social media, etc. I haven't had people on in a while, and we know we need to get those sales up all the time. So I wanted somebody to come on and start talking about that. So that's what's happening in June, and I got another full lineup for June. I'll be announcing that probably next week when I get everybody in the right dates, etc. Okay, my quick conversation today. Every time I speak with you guys, it's about what I'm hearing a lot in my consultations. And this is an ongoing thing. I haven't talked about it in a long time, and I'm hearing a lot of confusion on this. And this has to do with what is called a foreign entity doing business in California. Okay, let's back up. I am seeing a lot of clients get led down the incorrect pathway of belief that they can file an LLC in another state, one that does not have not have state tax, state income tax, and then that is going to avoid the California $800 franchise tax fee and all of the rules and regulations in California. And I'm seeing this propagated on social media once again. Guys, this could not be any further from the truth. It's completely wrong. When you are physically located in California, you could be sitting at your kitchen table selling a few widgets online. You are considered what is basically a legal term, doing business. You're engaged in business activities, okay? You could be sitting at your kitchen table doing research, doing a web design. Of course, if you have also a physical location, that goes without being said, but many people don't relate to just sitting in their kitchen table in California working online as actually doing business in California. So what California requires is if the entity is structured in another state, that's where the foreign comes from. It's foreign to California, and you're doing business in California, then you have to file a document that is foreign entity doing business in California. That's what it's called. Now, once you do, you are subjected to the exact same taxes and everything that the entity in another state would have. Okay. So you're not saving anything. In fact, from a tax perspective, more of an accounting tax, tax preparation, I should say, you are now filing documents in California plus that other state. You're paying that other fee in the other state. You're paying it in California. There are some reasons why people might do this, but once again, a lot of these ideas on these higher corporate reasons that people do these things that have trickled down into these myths in the small business world. So, if you're a corporation and you have really concerns about high profile lawsuits, you might want to be incorporated in Delaware and have these additional fees that you have to pay, but it's worth it because Delaware has a judicial system and precedents that are very strong towards class action suits for corporations. Okay, guys, nothing I'm saying sounds like your little business, does it? So don't fall in the trap of this social media information that is really not based on small business reality. And if in doubt, contact someone at the SBDC, contact me directly, take one of my courses. I'm just seeing so many people go down these roads where they've set up all of this expense, etc., when they don't need to. So that's Lori's Corner today. I talk about this a bit and I haven't in a while, so I wanted to bring it back up. Well, no further ado, let's get into the exciting part, okay? Jonny Liu is a Azusa-based entrepreneur and community builder. Since moving to the city in 2006, he's been creating spaces that bring people together. First through his work in student life at Azusa Pacific University, and later as the founder of Mantra Coffee Company and B&B Either Or and Halfsies Snack Shack. With a heart for hospitality and a deep love for his neighborhood, Jonny continues to invest in all kinds of places where people feel seen, fed, and connected. I love that. Welcome so much, Jonny, to this
Thank you
show.
so
I
much,
love that. That
Lori.
is like one of the best bio introductions that I have ever read. I absolutely love that. Welcome.
Thank
So
you.
happy to have you here.
Happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So,
Yeah.
what we're going to do is, I always like to go back into the history, but before we do, I just want to kind of set the stage here, Jonny, as to how we met. Let's talk about what's recently happened so people kind of understand where you are, what you're going through. I've had a few people on that have been affected by the fires, and
Mm.
I just like to come out and talk about that at the beginning so our audience kind of knows where you're at and what you've had happen. So just tell us a little bit about what happened to the company during the fires.
Right, right. So thankfully we are east of Altadena, where the fires ravaged through. However, so all of the winds were blowing west, and so we were fine, but the winds were like hurricane
Yeah, yeah,
status.
yeah.
And so in early January, before the fire started, were the winds, and we had severe wind damage. It ripped off a pergola that was at our coffee shop, which then was attached to the deck, which then
Oh,
was attached to the foundation of the house. The coffee shop is in a 130-year-old craftsman house that's been converted to a coffee shop. And so, believe it or not, since January, we've had to be closed because the structural repairs alone, assessed by the SBA, were in the hundreds of thousands of dollars.
wow.
And so, all of that to say is that currently we're closed. We've been open for 10 years. And and yeah, that's kind of the reality that we're living in is sort of waiting for the SBA to get back to us about our loans, and that's how you and I met.
Yeah.
So after repeated amounts of applying and getting, oh, yes, no, or submit these extra documents, etc. Finally, I reached out to our local SBA office, and that's when they CC'd us in an email and said, Lori, could you please meet with Johnny? And I said, yes, of course. And I had no idea that you would help me so much. And so that's kind of where we're at now. Yeah,
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that story. It's just traumatic, especially to hear about so many people's lives that have completely changed.
correct.
But at least it's not if, it's just when. There'll be a day
Right.
that the coffee shop will be up and thriving and
Absolutely.
the community will be thriving. And I've told you personally, my heart just goes out to you and everybody that has that experience. So I just want everybody to know that way everybody can remember Johnny and this interview. So when he opens,
Yes,
flood
please.
the coffee shop, okay? Be a line out there knocking on that door where they're like freaked out. They can't get enough coffee made for all the people that are at the door. So I just wanted to start with that. So, Johnny, let's walk backwards now. And, I like to find out how people got to where they are. And I'm in your bio, I definitely read into this theme of community and hospitality. There had to be some early influences that caused you to have a drive or passion towards having these kind of experiences, especially within space.
Right, right. What's interesting is in high school, I had an opportunity to go to Calcutta where I did work with Mother Teresa.
Wow.
Yeah, in the homes of her dying and destitute. And I was, believe it or not, just a sophomore in high school and the youngest as part of the group. And when we showed up, every group that shows up every Monday morning, there would be an orientation. You cannot start doing any volunteer work until you have a full orientation. And at this orientation, the nuns were, giving actually they're very regimented. They almost run it like a hospice care. Like, I mean, you learn the cleaning rituals, you learn everything. But what stuck with me as a sophomore in high school, and this was 1996, yeah, um, is that the nuns were saying, you know what? Like people have volunteered to sort of give us washing machines and dishwashers and all these things to modernize our production, but really we focus on loving the thing in front of us, loving the person in
Wow.
front of us. And they reference the phrase stop for the one. So just this idea that even if you're doing dishes, even if you are stomping on soiled linens from the patients at the home, you would do that faithfully. That you wouldn't be thinking, oh, but I just want the glamorous job. You know, I just want to be able to hold hands and take pictures and show the world that oh, I'm making such a big difference. Well, little did I know, hence even the name mantra, right, which is a short prayer or philosophy that's repeated over and over again. How I got sort of into hospitality was I just wanted people to feel safe. I wanted them to feel like there was a place that they belonged and that we didn't really, like, none of us know kind of what the future is going to bring.
Right.
And so, without being so sort of like, I mean, that story is impactful for me, but in the end of the day, I also just wanted a place that people could hang out.
Yeah.
And I realized that Azusa, California, didn't really have something like that. So I think much like many of us young entrepreneurs or young at heart even, or people who just started, or when we did start, um, I think we had a drive. We wanted to make a difference in our little communities, and so here I am, yeah, making this little change in Azusa.
Wow. I am so touched by that story, Johnny. It's like I'm suddenly speechless because I'm just so touched by it in many different ways. You know, Sadie and I and you were talking, we were sharing before the show. I always try to get the background in the story because I'm always surprised on where the story begins. I sure was not expecting that. And you know, I love the stop for the one and
Mhm.
however you said it, I'm paraphrasing
Yeah,
incorrectly.
that's
But
correct. Yeah,
it's so easy for us to get caught up in everything that we don't even notice those moments in life where we can make a difference.
correct.
I really try to, focus on what is really matters and especially in our busy, hectic lives. So when you went to Azusa or anytime, before that, when did you start blending the desire to be an entrepreneur and go on your own? When did that spark start coming into the equation?
Yeah, so when I started working, I moved to Azusa because I was working at Azusa Pacific University.
Eh,
And then about 8 years into that, I just started again having this drive, like wondering, is there something more? Is there another way I can engage the community outside of what I'm currently doing? Which I was basically the sort of doing college student development for thousands of students. So they would come see me for career, for roommate issues, for really any type of kind of first level base counseling, and then I would refer out. But I started seeing even so in Azusa specifically, although we're surrounded by affluent communities such as Glendora, Doherty, Monrovia. I mean, Azusa, 15% of is at or below the poverty line.
Oh,
And I started seeing this huge disconnect between Azusa Pacific, which is a more expensive private university, and our community, which still sometimes, experiences drive-by gang violence.
mm,
Um, and so I started asking myself, how do I engage? Like, and I did. I going back to the Kolkata story,
yeah.
the nuns often would say, please don't give handouts to people because we live here and we know exactly who targets our sort of homes and like so we can tell the difference with those who really need it, really need it
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
who are just kind of out there. And I think that's interesting because in order to engage in your community, you need to double down on your community. You need to live here, And so I have lived and walked the streets here in Azusa for 18 years. And so, yeah, I mean, that's kind of how it all got started. I just asked myself, how can I better engage? And I realized that this is so it's interesting. When COVID first happened, we were nearly shut down because, like many businesses, it suddenly just happened. And so we did a GoFundMe December of 2020. And very quickly, the money came pouring in for a small coffee shop, one single location, et cetera. And people were telling us that that's where they got through their college, or this is where they proposed to their partner, or this was where they had their first date, or this was where they stayed up through the night because we'd be open until 1 a.m. daily.
Okay.
And so I share those experiences because, again, I ask myself, how do we provide that third space? How do we engage the community the way that we do? And so for me, it was like, well, how about just this small little coffee shop?
Interesting. You know, I have great admiration for something you said, and I don't know if I'll be able to word what I'm trying to communicate here. So let me give it a try, Johnny. Goes back to what you said about doubling down on the community and the nuns identifying not giving away handouts. You know,
Correct.
I have thought about this so many times. I think as a species, can I just call us a species for a
Yes,
second? Right? Can
yes,
I just
yes.
say as a species? I think we're a caring species. I think we're a loving species. But I think where it gets complicated is you know intuitively sometimes help harms.
Mm.
Sometimes you're trying to help and you're harming more, in the fact that you're giving to people who really need to maybe stand up on their own at the time, who
Mhm.
maybe need to have tough love. And I love what you said about being able to differ from that, and or differentiate, I should say, and the nuns being able to differentiate as well. That was just so profound. I had to come back and visit that as a comment for a second because I felt like it was one of those very deep words of wisdom I didn't want to let fly away without being re-noticed. I've said to where I am in my life, intelligence, I'll take more, handing it out in line, give it to me. But if you can give me more wisdom, that's what I really am craving today. And I think that was a moment of wisdom. Um, I love the part about raising funds during COVID because it shows that people have a relationship with the coffee
Correct.
shop. And
Correct.
when it touches our lives and it touches the experiences of our lives, that's when we really care because we have that relationship. And so it shows that your goal of trying to create the space and have a relationship has transcended into that in the experience that other people have. This is one of those off the kind of a side road, Johnny, but I can't
Mhm.
help it because it's in my mind. For
Mhm.
people who just start, whether it's a coffee shop or a restaurant, and all they think of is location, and this is where I'm going to do it, and their whole intent is really to create that business. It's almost, and I never would have thought of it until talking with you, it's almost like it gets a different outcome from the original intention going into
Mm.
it. Any
Mhm.
thoughts on that, Johnny?
Yes. So I often talk about the latent benefits
Okay.
because you never think that, first of all, you build it and you don't know if they're going to come,
Right.
right? Or you do all the market research and it says this would be a great place for a coffee shop and it fails, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you kind of have to
Yeah.
ask yourself, like, what is your motivation? Hence, again, mantra, right? Like, what is our philosophy? And I would always say that we first and foremost love and we happen to make damn good coffee. And how we would love would be we'd be open 6 a.m. to 1 a.m. every single day, um, just for the community because we needed access to internet. Like the
Okay.
community needed clean bathrooms, right? And I think what's interesting is that when we did the research, I mean, people told me I opened across the street from a Starbucks. Actually, there are three Starbuckses in Azusa, probably now more. There might be five now. But what's intriguing is that as Starbucks has moved away from the model of third space, right? They're all
Yep.
becoming
Yep.
drive-throughs, et cetera, which makes sense. They have to chase profit. When I mean double down on my community, I mean that I'm going to stay here and I'm going to deepen my roots. And it's almost like what comes first, right? Is it because we deepen the roots that then we have a larger canopy that then people can rest under?
Mhm.
Or is it because, I don't know, for some reason we have long hours and people are coming at odd hours, et cetera. I think at the end of the day, for me, recognizing the purpose and the philosophy behind your mission or your business is going to help on those days that you look up, you look within yourselves, you ask the heavens, whatever it is, why you're doing what you're doing. Because let's be honest, like as small businesses, the profits are razor thin. I mean,
Right.
it's so funny. It's like people seem to think that business is easy or that we make all this money, but the truth is it's
No.
we don't.
No.
I mean, we don't. I have one location. This is, like again, razor thin. So going back to this idea that we have to know why we do what we do, um, is how I ended up sort of opening this coffee shop because I thought to myself that no matter what, I wanted a place that people could gather. I wanted a place where someone could come in and not even buy anything. Obviously, I hope they do buy stuff.
Right. Right.
Um, which they do. And what ended up happening was in that GoFundMe that we were funded, I think, within a few days.
Wow.
And then our our little GoFundMe got so much traction that I actually got interviewed by NPR.
Wow.
And then that helped as well because they were talking about how businesses on main streets across America were closing. And we were exactly that, right? We're in Los Angeles, but we're in a small little city, small
Mhm.
little suburb of Los Angeles, like 40,000 people, one location, minority owned. This isn't, one of those things. So I myself am an immigrant. I moved here when I was 5. And I'm the first, generation to graduate high school and college, right? And so that that really sort of made this experience of opening a coffee shop a little bit more impactful because the people who are coming to the coffee shop are oftentimes students who are also from immigrant families who
Yeah.
are also going to college and maybe studying to the wee hours of the night. And
Mhm.
again, during COVID, when even libraries, public libraries were closed, that
Yeah.
we were able to have people, because we have a large patio outdoors, and then of course inside with social distancing, whatever people felt comfortable with. But yeah, we were able to stay open for those people who really needed it. Yeah.
Yeah, that once again, tons of words of wisdom, Johnny, tons. I think I fully agree that whatever your specific passion, the thing that lights you up, whatever you want to say, going after that on some level always is a crucial component because
Yes.
life is hard. I don't care what you're doing, life is hard. Being a small business, it's hard. The profits are razor thin, which we're going to talk about that in a second. That is so true. So at the
Mhm.
end of the day, I think what is able to keep you going is if you love what you're doing, if you
It,
absolutely
it
love what you're
has
doing.
to be.
It
Yeah,
has to be.
it
I
has to
mean, my whole life has been like that. I've always said
be.
that if I didn't chase I mean, there was a point that I was in banking and could have gone into investment banking full time, and my friends have, and guys, you know what I mean by saying they make a lot of money, right? It was not where my passion was. It was not
Um,
where I wanted to be, where I am with the small companies. And so I found a way to financially be able to do that. So I think that's so important. And you hit a key point. I want to go back to the razor thin because
mm,
this now is in contrast because once again, you know what's so funny? We're talking about many kind of dualistic things here today. That's where the life is challenging, right? So you've got another duality. You want to follow your passion and you want to do all of these things that your heart wants you to do, but at the end of the day, my famous saying that I say all the time, you got to have pennies to buy a quart of milk. You have to be able to buy a quart of milk. And so with a business, you have to know the numbers and know what you have to charge. If you are not aware of it, you're going to go out of business. Obviously, you've been in business 10 years. You had to come up with that understanding, that relationship with the numbers and profits. Bring us first. Where did you start to get an understanding about the need for, I'm just going to use the word in generic, profitability? Was that something that you were always with when you were younger? Did you study finances? Or did you just kind of go into the company and get banged against the wall a few times? Bring us to the
right.
financial side of the story.
I feel like I'm more financially um, in tune now because anyone who is doe-eyed with the mission, you couldn't convince me that the coffee shop would fail.
Mhm.
And in fact, many people tried in the best way, almost like playing devil's advocate, right? You have a vision. And again, I have a business, I have the whole sort of business, research, everything done, right? Like as far as back in the day, and showing that to people, and they're like, it's just really hard to believe that this is going to make any money. And what's interesting is that we were in profit, like we were absolutely making profit the first 5 years. Um, Actually, what we did was 51% of our proceeds were donated. to local and global community development through education and scholarships. And we've always been a for-profit entity, but still, it's that whatever extra money we had, we would donate 51% of it. Little did I know that the latter 5 years, we needed that money,
I was gonna say
right?
that's a lot of
Right?
donation, Johnny. I'm
Exactly.
like going, I'm sitting here going,
Hmm.
okay, tell me how that worked out.
Correct, correct. And it was all
Right,
great because again, I think during those times, just go back 10 years, right? I hope everyone's businesses were thriving 10 years ago.
right,
Like because we were just in a different time then. Like,
right.
I mean, still post-COVID, as we know, still materials are high.
Yeah,
Still,
yeah,
I think the frustrating part is that there are people making money. They're just usually not the small businesses, right?
right. Right, exactly. I can contest to that because I'm looking at small business
Right,
financials on a daily basis and I'm
correct,
shouting out to my audience on a
right,
daily basis. It's not looking good. And people are
correct.
just, wrapping up on the credit card. So delve in more for our listeners who tend to be, let's say, shy on the finance side. They tend
Mhm.
to not want to look at the numbers. They tend not to not want to analyze the numbers. They tend to
Right.
feel like I just jump in with enough passion and it
One
works out.
thing,
That's my audience here. So
yes,
please
one
do
thing that
continue.
really helped me was realizing that I am providing a resource and it's worth it. So I think the hardest thing, so now with my business being closed, I do have friends that also have businesses, of course, and one of which has a coffee shop. And I am always lecturing them to raise their prices
Right,
because their prices are actually lower but better quality than Starbucks, right? And they're always saying, "Well, I just feel bad." And I say, "You know what?
yeah.
Take my advice. You'll feel worse if and when your business is closed,
That is so
right?"
true. I want to capture that. Oh my God, Johnny, I just want to capture it and be like a sound bite and it keeps repeating itself because I hear this on a daily basis and I have tried, and you hit the nail on the head. I want to come back to this. I have tried to figure out if it's a worth thing. It's almost like they're afraid to price in a way that they make money. Like profit scares them when I'm like, okay, you're not so profitable, you're greedy, and your business model wouldn't even allow that to happen. Okay, number one. But there's this constant, I think it goes back, and I would love your opinion, but for me, from an outside perspective, I see it toggles between worth and fear. Fear of not having a customer buy, needing to compete with competitors that are truly not your competitor, big corporations like Starbucks that can buy at a discount. So not wanting to raise above the corporation, fear again,
Mm.
and worth. It's like what keeps people in this process where they can't just say, I need to charge this much financially. Let me create the mission, the story, and the marketing to support that price.
Right. I also think on another hand is that, for example, it was difficult for me to launch a GoFundMe because it was difficult for me to ask for money. It
Mm.
was difficult for me it's always easier to be the one, I think, handing out,
Yes.
but
Yep.
to be the one receiving saying that you need help. And I have a wise friend who said, Johnny, actually, you're being very selfish. And I said, what do you mean? And they said, well, you help other people, but you won't let other people help you. And I think it really kind of ties in a little bit with the finances too, is that you want to keep your prices low. I mean, honestly, if I could keep my prices low, great. And I'm not saying that they were skyrocketing.
Right.
All I'm saying is that believe it or not, because you are offering such a unique perspective here in this city, like, and I'm talking to about Mantra too. It's like we're really the only kind of mom pop shop that is open such long hours, that has a vast sort of outdoor space and indoor space, blazing fast internet, all these things, all the things that we had talked about.
Right.
Because we have that, believe it or not, like people, when they exchange money, they're literally buying into what you're providing.
Yeah.
And I
Yep.
think what we don't keep in mind is that don't cheapen yourself.
Yep.
But that's not, I don't think that's what they're trying to do. I don't think that that's what my friend is trying to do by not raising prices. I think that it's all intertwined. I think there's something about they want to keep prices low, they want to be approachable, they want to be whatever. But the truth is that people are going to buy and pay what they want to buy and pay, and they obviously enjoy your establishment. Therefore, raise the prices because you don't know for a rainy day. Right.
You don't, it's
And
so true.
again, I took the first 5 years for granted, and I think maybe many of us did, including corporations, et cetera, like
Yeah,
thinking that our economy was always going to be growing, that it was always going to be good. Who would have known that we would be hit by a global pandemic? And again, whether wherever you fall on the spectrum of COVID, right?
yeah,
What we experienced together was still exactly that, just this uncertain time that none of us really knew. um, wow, if I had been able to save some of that, I think, well, I don't know. I tend to not try to play like what would have been because the
yeah,
truth
me too.
is that I do believe in what I'm doing now. And I think we should be confident as business owners and entrepreneurs in what our mission is and what our philosophy and mantra is, right? So but all that to say, I think that's the thing with finances is that it can get really sticky, but also we have tools and apps and programs these days that really can help us a lot. And if we don't take advantage of those, I think we will be left behind, in that dust because people are looking for new ways to engage businesses, et cetera. So, yeah.
Yeah, and there's so many things that I want to unpack, and I'm making my little notes to make sure I come back to think of them. When you talk about people will pay what they'll will pay, the other
Mhm.
thing I have kind of come to believe, I'll get your opinion on this, is that I think that customers, I'm just going to say that across the board, customers are willing to pay more than the entrepreneur believes they will. I
Correct.
think that the entrepreneurs have been sold a bad bag of goods, believing that they always need to be the lowest and not recognizing that the individuals will be willing to pay a little bit more. And also, Johnny, I see this in myself. I don't know if other people are seeing this too. I've gotten to a point, especially with being taught over the last several decades, to get the cheapest, outsourcing,
Hmm.
because
Correct.
I studied that when I was in my MBA, and so I was involved in the early outsourcing, and suddenly you buy things cheap too. I don't want the cheapest. I want something that's good,
Yes.
it
Correct.
lasts, it's solid, it makes me feel happy. I don't want the establishment anymore.
Hmm.
I want
Hmm.
those things and I'm willing to pay a little bit more. Are you seeing that trend change?
I am seeing that as well. So, for example, I think so. Right now, I'm in the midst of spring cleaning. I'm sure many of us are, and I'm realizing why have I amassed all of this stuff that really I don't even look at or even need.
Yeah.
And so less is more in that way, right? Even something as simple as clothing. I mean, I wear my favorites, right?
Yeah.
And actually on a side note, when I was listening to the whole disaster relief thing, they were saying if and when you have to evacuate, you know what you do, you actually pack your bags of your dirty laundry because your dirty laundry hamper
It's
is
what you
what
wear.
you wear every day. And why I mention that is because there are our favorites and the things that we like. We go back to the restaurants, the same ones, and we get the same dish every single time. And I think as humans or as a species, as you were saying earlier, that we have this routine and we will be and are selling ourselves short if we don't recognize that the product that we're serving and offering is more specialized and is more
Yeah.
worth something that you would just buy on Amazon, or, fill in the blank of online ordering. And I think we are looking for quality over quantity. It's just is. At least certainly I am. Even in my like, for example, PTO or vacation time. Like I'm not interested in going back necessarily to the same, places. I'm gonna save up and really try to be like, okay, if I get one vacation this year,
Yeah.
then I'm going to go to this spot because, well, I don't know if I'll ever be able to go again, or like like
Right.
we don't know what this is going to be. So going back to
Mm.
business, I think it's that same thing. It's so this idea that we are providing a service and goods that are far superior than what, the large corporations are offering.
Completely, and I'm going down a real, let me call it a rabbit hole in this, but it just is so in tune, in my opinion, my personal philosophy on what we're talking about. So I'm going to go down a rabbit hole for a second. I
Yeah.
might
Oh yeah,
drag you down
absolutely.
it. Okay, Johnny?
I'm
Okay,
ready.
audience, I'm not, don't
We're
attack me because
diving
I'm going to
down.
say something right now. I'm going down a rabbit hole. Don't attack me, audience. Okay. Opinions nicely. Going back to what you were saying about we offer something special, going
Hmm.
back to being small businesses, it is my belief, and I've been kind of talking about this slightly to circles that won't get too upset if I say this, is that you know, being 61 now, I grew up in an entrepreneurial time when an entrepreneur meant their product or service was unique, it was tailored, it was catered, it had a quality, and it cost a little bit more, but you got more. That's where it was when I started out, okay? And then over the time, as we just discussed, it changed. Now, here's where the rabbit hole is. I know everybody, here we go, get ready, is freaking out about the tariffs. Now,
Hmm.
I don't care what side of the political spectrum you're on. This is a heart love to my entrepreneurs. This is not political. I've seen in the years so many of the entrepreneurs struggle to outsource and then get their goods from China to be the lowest, only to have to pay out so much more in inventory, so much more in shipping. Where then I seen the other set of entrepreneurs that are just making it local, charging a higher price, and do it under a unique and customization, and they are more profitable. I do believe, I'm not saying whether tariffs are good or bad, guys. I am not commenting on this. What I am commenting on specifically, as every change happens in our world, there is an opportunity. I think this is a golden opportunity for the entrepreneurs to start looking at maybe sourcing in America, sourcing and making more of their stuff in America, because small companies have been really hurt financially trying to compete in the outsourcing world. So
Right.
I think it goes back to what you're saying, that not only is there a trend, but perhaps some political changes. I'm just going to say it that because I'm not being political, but has maybe done something for some people. But underneath this, there is a golden opportunity to where I think it could be the, let's call it the year of the entrepreneurs springing forth and taking a role and a market share that they and a price strategy they were not able to. So that was my huge rabbit hole, Johnny. Feel free to comment or go, I'm going to pass because it is a rabbit hole.
No, I
But
think for
what are your
me,
thoughts?
yeah, for me when I think tariffs, I'm thinking definitely the pendulum has swung as far as so yes, I do love affordable things, and let's just imagine that most of those things are imported, right?
Right.
But the bummer about it is, I think for me, generally speaking, I want more options as a small business owner. I want to be able to, let's say if I was sourcing cups, I want to be able to get cups from overseas if I want to. I
Yep.
also want to get cups from a local source.
Yep.
And I'm talking about that pendulum because I think on one hand, yeah, cheapest, let's say the cheap side is going to be the imported, and then the more expensive is going to be, locally made. Let's just say.
Right.
I feel like that the pendulum is hopefully evening out because at the end of the day, what I want to see as an entrepreneur or even as a citizen here in the US is I want to see more options. I want people to have because if you think about capitalism, it's going to have to be that people are competing.
Yes.
So that then the prices for the consumer is driven down. But I think the problem that we have as small business owners is that through the years of again, I think we're panning out. We're seeing this in like decades, right? You're seeing that monopolies are growing. I mean, this is happening right now with the antitrust laws, right, with Facebook and stuff or
Yep.
Meta. Um, Basically, like what we're seeing is these huge conglomerates forming. And so, what choice do I have to buy cups local?
Right, right,
It's
right,
not to say I don't want to. It's
right,
just it's gone. And then now I have to buy from the big box stores because I
right.
don't know where else to get my cups.
I agree. I
And
agree. I
yeah,
love
and
what you're saying.
so right. So all I'm saying is that whatever we need to do to sort of fix the system, and by fix, I mean more options, more competition, so that in the end, not just consumers, but also small businesses are supported because we have choices. Right now, I'm not sure where else to go that will have, you know, like for example, let's say you have to order from whatever company, but you have to have a $750 minimum or a $7,000
Exactly. And
minimum.
that's what I'm talking about with the
Exactly.
outsourcing. Yes.
But then the local person making cups, I mean, my goodness, I'm sure they want to make cups for us, but at the same time, like, what if they're not selling enough cups that it makes sense for them to scale their business so anyway, with all that said, is that
Yep.
it goes back to this idea of however we can diversify our economy. So if the tariffs will help sort of bring that pendulum more towards the middle so that it's not so, yay, cheap goods from overseas, and now more so starting up local, companies to make cups, I'm all for it. But I think much like all of us here, there are really smart people who say tariffs are a great idea, and really smart people who say tariffs are a bad idea.
Yeah, yeah,
And
I know, I
so,
know, I know, I know,
yeah,
and that's where I try to
yes.
go, okay, let me go, but what does that mean for my world? And I love what you're saying, Johnny, and that's what I'm saying. I just feel as though the small business, locally made, able to start it, this tiny business with a small inventory because
Mhm.
they bought it locally and they didn't have to
Yes.
understand shipping and all this stuff. They just shrink down to nothing hardly. And
Mhm.
so I feel like if, at the end of the day, whether it's good or bad, I'm not going to make any claims. I'm not going to go on either side.
Right.
I'm
Right.
just going to say it is, and there's that opportunity. And I think that is so true. And as you were saying it, given the mantra coffee, I kept thinking about it and I was almost laughing internal. I'm like, I heard this little voice like, "Oh, us silly species, when are we going to understand?" And I'm not Buddhism, I'm not of any religious persuasion, so I'm not saying this with meaning anything, but that Buddha and the middle way means something. Okay. I only know it
Mhm.
enough, but it's that
Mhm.
pendulum. Why do we always have to go
Right.
from here
Right.
to get here? Maybe
Right.
we can just, as a species, start to realize, let's just go to the middle way and stop making it so painful for ourselves.
Exactly. Oh my
It,
gosh, you're
it,
absolutely right.
it's so true. So I wanted to also talk about there was something that I read in your intro, and I had to go back and let's piece this apart. What
Sure.
is either or and Halfsies Snack
Snack Shack.
Shack? I was like, I read that. I have a little note. Make sure you go back
Right.
and ask, what is that?
Right. So, Halsey Snack Shack, okay, is an Altadena dairy, or former Altadena dairy. So if you live in Los Angeles, we have these drive-through dairies that are kind of predate 7-Eleven. You'd literally drive through and pick up milk, eggs, produce, etc.
Okay.
And they're sort of scattered throughout the Southern California landscape, but they're starting to close, right? Each one was independently owned and operated. I believe maybe, I'm sure some people had a few of them or something. Well, there was one in Azusa that closed and or had been closed for 12 years. And I was able to, it's the closest um, commercial property within the only high school of Azusa. And I was able to open this sort of drive-through snack shack because I thought that the high school students in Azusa
Yeah.
need something like this where they can get affordable, but also really cool, like international snacks, etc., that you'd kind of see on TikTok. And this younger generation is obsessed, right? And so I'm sourcing these goods from um, uh, all over the world, really, and just this idea that we too can have nice things in Azusa, where I think a lot of times people think that, oh, because you live in a not so developed or fancy community, that you can't source these things. And so sourcing this, imagine it almost like a international bodega of sort, right? So
Okay.
if there is a sauce, if there's a snack, if there's a drink, if there's a bottled beverage, if there's anything like that, we will source it for you and have it at the snack shack. So that's what Halvesies is. And then either or is actually the second rendition of what Mantra is going to be. So Mantra Coffee, as we know it, currently is closed. But for years, and this even happened before our closure, was that we were working towards getting an alcohol license. And it
Mm,
wasn't this idea that we wanted this raging bar, right?
mm.
I don't know if, you can tell or if the viewers can tell, I'm not someone that, sure, if we're at a bachelor party, I'm all good to, party. But I wanted a place where you could get coffee in the morning, maybe cocktails at night, or either or, right?
Oh,
And
I love
so,
it. Because
right.
your morning may be somebody else's night.
Exactly. And so just this idea that the next rendition of Mantra after we reopen is going to be named either or. We're still keeping the name Mantra Coffee, but it'll be changed to either or because I'm looking for, imagine the same atmosphere as a coffee shop. The same things that I was discussing during this session is that a third space for people to hang out, but we'll have a variety of drinks, including adult beverages.
I
So,
love it.
and that hopefully will be sourced, right? And affordable. So again, those same things where let's say you are sober, and I love that. You can still get your regular sort of coffee, teas, pastries, etc. But alongside that, we're gonna do small bites, craft, sort of drinks and cocktails. And so that's the hope. But again, I think the scary part with all of this is where is like spending all this money, putting it back into a business that has been barely afloat for the last 5 years is really scary. And again, so it butts up against like the mission of what you know to be right and what you are so passionate about. It butts up against the mission and also the practicality of are you
Yeah.
going to make enough money to keep it
Yeah.
open?
And you need both. It's funny. So, Johnny, as we were talking, and I don't know, it was another one that I may not be able to get the right words in, but let me give it a try. I've noticed this kind of consistency in your thought processes and actions, which I admire. So let me tell you what I picked up on, okay? So, as you were speaking, I noticed that you always come from an awareness, self reflection on what you want to do, but also awareness of reality. Okay, we're not making a profit. Okay, I really needed that money. So, it's this awareness of internal and at the same time, an awareness of reality. Then you have this thing, and I notice it because I talk about it a lot. You ask yourself very good questions. Well, what would this look like? What am I trying to do? What would happen? Then you ask these questions that are very profound. Then you focus on it by taking that awareness back in and looking at the demand. Oh, the kids need a snack. Oh, the community needs this safe space. I don't know if you sense what I'm saying or if you could say, Lori, you're talking craziness. I don't even see that. But I feel like you've got this winning strategy where the awareness, the reality, the asking internally good business and personal questions, and then looking in the community to see where the need is and constantly filtering through that process. Am I
Hmm.
totally off track on
No,
something?
you're not. I mean, this is why I'm talking about that ethos or who are you? What is your
Yeah.
mission? What is your vision? Because on a rainy day, we need to remember that.
Yeah.
There was nothing more impactful than the day that we closed for COVID. So the staff was there. Remember, they said we were going to close for 2 weeks.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember that.
And so the staff all gathered. We brought all the furniture inside, and there's one picture, and it's not on our Instagram anymore because we've archived all of our photos so that we can get ready for the second rendition, right, of what either or is going to be. And so, but that picture, just imagine the inside of a house and all of our furniture is stacked on top of each other, and then we're all socially distanced. So we're all like spread out in that photo, and then thinking that we were gonna reopen in 2 weeks. And 2 weeks goes by, then 2 months, then 2 years,
Yeah.
and you begin to realize just the death of that dream.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not to say that the dream, just because it died or that the previous 8 years wasn't valuable, and
I know.
it doesn't negate that. But that slow death, especially when it was not caused by you,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
one thing if it was like, you're just not a very good business person, or
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
like, oh gosh, you keep making mistakes in ordering, and you keep ordering all these goods, and whatever, they're all disposable. No, I think it's when it's of no fault of your own,
Yes.
and then you kind of have to, you sort of see your dream slowly, slowly,
Yeah.
kind of just reduce.
Yeah.
Wow. And then again, upon the closure, the official closure of Mantra, post the wins and everything, where I was just like, I don't have the money, and this space is not going to be safe for people to hang out in. And remember, I'm looking for a safe
Safe
space.
space, right? And you literally are now discussing not
Exactly.
safe physically. Yes.
Correct. And so with all that said, is what you have picked up on is and thank you for that, because it is something that I strive for, and I think all of us do. As much as we need to be cutthroat,
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
much as we need to be resilient and
Do.
have become, I think we're scarred. I think in a good way too, that these scars also help us, though, like, just to be resilient. I mean, as we know, nothing is handed to us on a silver platter. As much as we can sit here and be like, oh, look, I have all these businesses. But
Yeah.
again, the truth is, we know razor thin margins. We
Yeah.
know that anything could change at any moment. And so, but what we do have control over is why we do what we do,
Yeah.
because I can't control the markets. I can't control tariffs.
Yep.
I'm not controlling, who
Yeah.
gets grants and who don't, like, et cetera. But I can control who I am, what I do in my community, and what my mission and vision is for my little coffee shop. And so I would sort of kind of put that back out to everyone watching, is that just know why you're doing what you're doing. And so on that rainy day, yeah, it's going to be difficult and there's a lot to get through, but you can keep your head up knowing that you're following what you know to be true to your heart. And that is most important.
Yeah, I've been talking a lot about resiliency on the show since the fires. That's been one of the words that I use a lot. One of the things that I profoundly believe in is that you can't control what happens to you, but you can control your response. And I use the word response rather than react on purpose. I definitely use that word on purpose. And I think that one of the things that when I was in my 20s and 30s and was listening to back at the time, Anthony Robbins, love him, I'm not saying anything against him, but it was like create your goals. So everything was about the goals I wanted to create, and you were driven by them, and they made you feel good and bad at the same time, right? It was a good 20 years ago that I realized I'm going to look at what experiences I want to have, what experiences in down to the core element. Do I want to experience joy? Do I want to experience challenge? Do I want to experience creativity? And if we look at our experiences and let whatever comes to us have that experience, whether it's a pink gift or a blue gift or a green gift, doesn't matter. Don't get an idea the box is supposed to look like that. That's where the richness is. And I think that you have a really elegant and profound way of talking about the experiences and living a rich life and experiences, and that can be both the good, bad, and ugly in our
Yeah,
experiences, because
yeah,
that's what makes life rich. And also, as you talked about, it can look so great with three businesses. That's why I talk about this show being real people, real real discussions, because as you listen to what I call the Hollywood entrepreneur shows, they make it sound like it's all like this nice little fiddles playing in the backyard, but it's not. It's much more sloppy, but it's also much more beautiful and it's much more real. Jonny, I just can't thank you enough. This has been, I'm going to just call today a beautiful, beautiful discussion. I really want to invite you back on before you open. Please
Oh,
give
I
us
would love
plenty of
that. I would
time.
love to give everyone
Um,
an update.
you
Yeah.
you you get out to me when you got an opening date. You email me immediately. We're going to get you on the show. We want to come back and get an update, and we want to create that line outside your door. For anyone that's in any vicinity, we want that line outside your door. I want to just say any last parting messages. You dropped so much wisdom already, but is there anything last you would like to leave with our audience?
No, to be honest, that really what I said was it. I mean, it has to be figure out what you want
Yeah,
and go for it. Despite, oh, so I will say this. So again, lots of people play devil's advocate. And many people then after we opened asked, I can't believe it. How did you do it?
yeah,
Right. And so I think for those of us who are entrepreneurs, we have a vision that other people might lack. And it's not to say that we're better than them. It's just that, you know how like you can kind of see a project before it's done
yeah,
and
yeah,
you have an eye and you know what it's going to be, but you try to describe that to someone and they're going to be like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
yeah, yeah,
And so I would say trust yourself, trust your gut, and go for it. And people are not going to understand your vision, but oh, of course, be smart about it, right? Do
right.
all your research, all those things, like get people, surround yourself with advisors around you, like
Yeah,
Lori,
yeah,
like just that are going to remind you of these things. Okay, great. You want to do that? Well, then don't forget X, Y, and Z. And you know what you do really well, Lori, is you say, and then let's follow up in, you know, 2, 3 weeks.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so for sure, and oh, one more thing, that you are not in it alone.
yeah, yes,
So, so important. You have to know that yes, the entrepreneurship can feel lonely sometimes because no one necessarily feels exactly what you're feeling,
right.
but it doesn't mean that you have to be alone in it.
No, no,
Right? So I think the difference is finding people who will support your vision even if they don't know what the vision is.
yeah.
That they'll at least journey with you, right? Like I think of I'm gonna nerd out now with Lord of the Rings, right? But it's like at the very end, Frodo is passing out, and Sam is like was his best friend with him along the whole journey, was scolded about carrying the ring that one time. And then Sam, in like the most cheesy way, is like, I can't carry the ring, but I can carry you, right? And it's like, it's
I love
so,
it.
so cheesy. But the truth is that you're not alone and that there are not people who can carry that burden for you, but there are people who can journey with you and will at least like be with you during that journey. And so I would say I would leave people with that.
I feel like I went to the fountain of wisdom. I do. I feel like we had a fountain of wisdom discussion because I love that. They can't carry it, but can journey with you. That is so eloquently said. Jonny, if you ever have spare time, you could write your own coffee book of words of wisdom to be in your coffee shop on your coffee table. Okay.
Well, thank you so much.
I could talk with you forever, but please do give me a heads up because we booked the show in advance. I want to get you on the show several weeks before your grand opening. I want to make sure a shout out for everybody to know you're about to open. This has been a very heart-touching story. It absolutely has to. But Sadie, we got to bring you back in. Oh, isn't this amazing?
I mean, I honestly thought we were going to talk about like, and then I got the coffees from here and I sampled this. And next thing I know, I'm talking about Mother Teresa. We're talking like, new work, just everything where I was like, what did we not talk about? I mean, maybe cleaning tips. Like, that's the only thing we probably didn't talk about.
I know, I know. So that with that, That brings us to a wonderful conclusion for the show. So as always, Sadie's going to stay there. Johnny, take a quick look at the chat. They're just loving on it. They're just loving
Oh,
on
thank
this.
you.
But Sadie will stay after to make sure you get all the information. You get Johnny's information, my information. I didn't get the chance to see anything in the chat, so I think some people were trying to reach out to me. Just email me. You can, reach out to me. Sadie puts my email in there. And if you were brand new to the show, I saw somebody was new to the show. Welcome. Please join us every Wednesday. And the past shows are always live on YouTube. Takes them a couple weeks to catch up on it, but this show will be live on YouTube. I saw a couple people asking about that. So we are out of time. So my frequent flyers that are here with me every single week, I see your names. I saw Brenda, I saw Chris, I saw a few of your names I see every week. Thank you for being here with me every week. And if you're brand new, I look forward to seeing you next week on Small Biz Talk with your host, Lori Williams. Thank you, Johnny. As always, thank you, Sadie. Bye, everybody. See you next week.
Bye, everyone. See you next week. And like I said, don't worry. I'll be here. Let me know if you need anything, okay?